let's see. So I've been looking at corporate governance for a while, and I'll offer opinions. I like the project, but there are ways in which I'm going to suggest that it be repositioned. I'm going to try to focus on what I'd like to see the authors do, rather than what in a more developed paper, what I dislike about what they've already done. But okay, if I don't say something about what I dislike, you all will be disappointed because you know me. So this is a case study, and it builds on a prior study by some of the same authors of Hermes, which is an activist investor in a way that Standard Life is not. I like both projects. You can describe Standard Life, I think, as an active money manager, but not an activist investor. And they seem to have lots of small engagements and quotes, but we don't get a sense from the slides of just what it is they do. All we get is counts. And what I'd like to see is a lot more thick description of what they do with some case studies, with some anecdotes. And so a question for the authors is, are there any big engagements, or is it just, 200 small ones where they talk to the fund, to company managers? Are there cases where they join with others to change management along the lines of the anecdotes in my old article with Jack Coffey on UK activism? Does that still happen, for example, or have the standard money managers turned all that off to the hedge funds, and all they do is vote yes or no on what the hedge funds want to do? We don't know that. I'd like to know it. I'd like to know if that quiet, behind the scenes engagement to try to change management happens at least some of the time. Does Standard Life participate in those efforts? I want to ask a question about holding sizes. And so by international standards, Standard Life just isn't very big, right? I mean, $375 billion just doesn't rate. So they've got 49 trillion in their top 50, so this is less than 1% of the top 50. They don't tell us how much of that is equities. I'd be interested in their holdings of equities relative to worldwide, maybe more importantly of equities in the UK, which is where I suspect a lot of their activity takes place. Are they big enough to matter? And so from a US perspective, if Vanguard and BlackRock want to talk to you, managers should listen. Doesn't mean they will. I don't know whether anyone listens if Standard Life talks. And so I want to know a lot more about their position sizes, dollars, percent of firm shares. That's not in the slides or the backup tables right now, but that feels important to whether they could have effective voice. Just are they big enough? In the US, my sense would be they probably walked softly and carried a small stick. Right? They were just too small to matter. Their voice wasn't very loud. If that's right, then their governance strategy has to reflect their degree of influence. Might be different in the UK, but I'd like to hear about their influence in the UK. If that's right, their voice isn't very loud, they talk. Will anybody listen? Will anyone change? Maybe not. Okay, voice versus exit. If you don't have much voice, you have potential exit, which is consistent with what their preliminary findings are, actually. So let me say something about my views of the author's big questions, which Hans presented. And so is engagement related to trading and long-term holdings and trust and commitment, and can we lift the veil on exit and voice? And does the investment performance relate to governance and stewardship? Well, maybe you should pull back a little. So I'd like to see more in the way of thick description, text, not tables and not regressions, of what Standard Life does. There's a sense in the slides of we're going to assume that other institutions are similar. That was less present in the talk. But discuss Standard Life, not a stylized manager. Discuss Standard Life. That's what you know. Then for item 1, is engagement related to trading? Yeah, long-term holdings, maybe. We don't know that yet. I don't know what trust and commitment means here. And so I'd say pull back a little and pull back to what you can measure more directly. Number 2, can you say anything about exit versus voice? Not without a lot more thick description of voice, and outside the UK, I suspect they're just not big enough to have much voice. And third, does investment performance relate to governance and stewardship? I think it's going to be really hard to get at that with monthly data, and I'll say a little bit more about that soon. Okay, so toward thick description, my proposed new topic. How do they staff their governance office? How many people? What are their salaries? What are their skills? And so some time ago, I wrote a skeptical review of U.S. shareholder activism, predating hedge funds, and I said the following: a small number of American institutions, mostly public pension funds, spend a trivial amount of money on overt activism. They don't conduct proxy fights. They rarely try to elect their own candidates to the board of directors, and the evidence is consistent with the proposition that the institutions achieve the effects on firm performance that one might expect from this level of effort, namely not much. UK could be different, but I want to treat that as a null hypothesis. Are the UK investors or Standard Life doing significantly more than that? Just because they're voting centrally and they have a couple of people calling up fund managers, it may still be a relatively small effort. Something caught my eye in the tables that the authors sent to me. So the governance warning rate really drops in 2014 and 2015. I don't know why. But I think you need to think about why. Maybe the warnings just weren't that useful, and so they're getting out of the business. I don't know, but it was 80, 80, 80, 90, 90, now it goes down to 60 and then to like 40 in the last 2 years where they have data. So I don't know what that's telling you about what they think of their own warning system. Again, more on what the governance warnings look like. What do they look like? Give us some examples. Give us some text. How long do they stay on? Or is it just, here's a warning, and then we go away? How long do their internal effects persist? So we see the spike at month 0. Maybe there's something at month 1, but after that, it's, there's not very much. How many more contacts do we see after the warning? Or is it just, we hit you once and then we go back to whatever we usually did? And a technical comment I'll skip over. What does the governance warning predict about the future? So Hans showed you a slide of what factors predict the warning. Technical comment for Probit: give us marginal effects. Once you do, there will be no difference between that and OLS, I predict. The coefficients will be very close. They always are. But mostly I want to turn around and ask the question, what does the warning predict in the future? And be specific about the future, because right now you're a little fuzzy on that in some way. So here are some examples of some things you could look at. Discussions with the firm, for how long, returns in the future, 1 month, 3 month, 1 year, change in governance of the firm, right? Change in Standard Life Holdings, you've done some of that. But I'll talk about why I'm not delighted about how you did it. How do they vote? But again, strictly in the future, right? I don't want to see a regression of votes in the same years. I want to see a regression of what happens after the warning going forward. Internal analyst views, we saw some of. Are there any changes in external analyst views? The external analysts have the similar views. So here where I was a bit frustrated with the specifications. So your slide 18. Something happens around the governance warning. I want to know after, not around, not before, not at the same time. I want to know after. The voting, right? The time period seems to be a full year. Contemporaneous, again, I want to know after. Does the warning predict future votes? Technical comment on how you count the dependent variable that I'll leave to the authors. Then at the end, they relate returns to analyst recommendations, but not directly to the governance warnings. And mostly, they use a period of a month before to a month after that covers both the past and the future. And what I'd like to see is start with a warning and look forward. Forget minus 1 month. Minus 1 month could be, the negative returns then could be locking the barn after the horse has escaped. Month 0 is very hard. I think it'll be hard with only monthly data. So you find governance health warnings leading to trading. Again, I want to see direct, not analyst change, but governance warning. How much more likely is a substantial sell-off? You have some of that, but I'm looking for more richness. And I'd really urge you to look at the direct effect of the warning, not mediated through the analyst change in recommendation. That's assuming a particular channel, and I don't think you should or need to do so. Does governance health warning lead to alpha? Again, really going to be really hard to tell with monthly data. Frankly, I'd be surprised if a couple of guys in an office looking at governance can generate alpha. Governance is public information. It should be priced. But if you want to get at that, you've got to show a separate returns for month -1, month 0, plus month +1. You can't lump them together because you're mixing up the past and the future. Only month 1 provides clean, forward-looking data. -1 does, and month 0 could reflect the price drop leads to the change in analyst recommendation, leads to the closer look at governance, so the arrow of causation is not going the way that, that you're trying to look at. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
Yes.
There is one on this issue of the substitute. Some questions about this. So one, it seems to me that the standard view is if voice isn't successful, then you exit. But the fact that you voted no, it doesn't mean the vote was successful. For two reasons. One is you would think that the most natural would be, like you think that voice won't be successful, you're not going to wait until you vote against. You're just going to say the same as before. Secondly, in some cases, shareholders vote no, and then the managers respond. For example, you vote on same pay against managers, and then they change. In which case, you would need to wait, see what the company did in response to the vote, and then the prediction would be that they sell not immediately after the vote, but they sell 6 months later if they voted and the managers didn't take it into account. And lastly, it seems that there will be at least one thing going in the opposite direction, namely if you're going to sell, you might be more willing to vote no because you don't care anymore about relationship with the issuers. So with fund managers, usually they say, on the margin we're reluctant to vote no, because then we compromise our ability to talk with the issuer. So this would kind of go the opposite direction. I dropped the other code because I spoke too much. I can tell you after. Okay.
Go on.
It's actually more like a suggestion, but I think two suggestions maybe. One is probably to me, the most interesting variable is these discussions that you observe, which we don't know a lot about. What explains that, right? So that's almost like, the outcome variable. The other one is, because these are typically behind the scenes, it's almost like you have this laboratory where you can say, well, let's try to explain governance mechanism, voice and exit, assuming that we don't observe these discussions. And let's see how much we can, what changes once we can actually, conditions on these discussions. Do they change any outcome in a meaningful way? I think you have the data to do something like that. That would be interesting.
Okay. Let's hear the
But you can, after text, you can send one of these analyzing robots on it to figure out how much are they really using these conversations to find out information versus influence. I mean, I think there's an assumption, if I understand it correctly, that this is about Standard Life trying to influence companies. I imagine that 80% of them, they just want to know what's going on.
Okay, now.
And going back to the point that Bernie ended with about the relationship of performance, and actually in your initial slides when you're talking about the governance flag often is a response to poor performance. It does seem like that poor performance might also generate the discussion, be a vehicle for gathering information, and then influence the decision, do I hold on or do I sell? Is this kind of a short-term performance problem, and am I reassured when I talk with management?
And I think we might want to respond.
Okay.
Anybody like to?
So maybe quick response. I take it from your feedback, which is enormously appreciated. So first, these are important questions that need to be analyzed because we don't understand them well. This is precisely why we are doing it. We have a huge to-do list, and Bernie has added many points down to the list, so thanks a lot. This is very welcome. Maybe just two quick things. One, we think, but we may be too optimistic, that their voice is loud enough, because in the UK, they are not always, but frequently the largest shareholder with a 3 to 5% stake. So let's say,
then you should really focus
exactly,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
UK. Right,
So,
and say that, because
exactly.
it just wasn't clear from the slide.
And second, what I thought was especially interesting, let's say from the academic point of view, So we had a meeting, you know, you get 1 hour with the fund managers, you know, and that's it, because they have important things to do. So we presented our work to them, and naively I asked them, you know, what would we have to show you is the impact of governance on Alpha for you to be interested in spending some time with us? And they said, give me 1 basis point. 1 basis point is enough, then I'm interested. And before the basis point, there was a word that I can't repeat. But you know, they want 1 basis point, then they're interested. So thank you for the feedback and the comments.
Okay. Thank you everybody for being with us. We will continue with lunch. Lunch is in the economics building, as I said before. And if you are ready, we'll walk